Okay, welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Monday the 16th of November, the remote meeting as usual. If you hadn't realised, we're still in a pandemic, so people please take care. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and I think there are none looking around to me. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting. Can I have anybody to agree them, please? Can somebody to move and second?
I'll move them.
Thank you.
I'll second them.
Thank you very much. You are all there.
I was muted, sorry, leader.
It's okay. Next item is to receive any declarations of interest, if there are any. No? Good. In that case, we'll go into the meeting proper. But before I do, I normally take the time at this time, particularly at the moment where we have a pandemic, to remind people that it has not gone away. COVID-19 is still with us. I'd like to thank both the Health Authority and our staff for helping us to have a mobile test unit in Barry recently, which was successful in that many people came in to be tested, and that's really good. I'm glad that they've taken that opportunity. But I will still remind people that we are in the midst of a pandemic, and we still have to remember the lessons learned and what we have to do. So we're just coming out of the fire break. I was watching some of the results that came out in the last fortnight, and things seem to be improving a little, but only a little. So please take care. Wear a mask. Stay at home if you can. Work from home if you can. If you wash your hands, if you can't wash your hands, use gel. But take all the safety precautions and stay 2 meters apart whenever you can outside. But always wear a mask. Seems as to keep on saying these things, but I think people really do need to realise that pandemic is with us. It is likely to be with us for quite a long time. There is some hope that we will have some vaccines for some, the most vulnerable in our society soon, but it doesn't mean that we can relax. So again, I'm sorry to start the meeting by saying that, but I think it's important that we still remember we're in the midst of a pandemic. Okay, to the reports properly. There's a report here from the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee. It's minutes of their meeting of the 29th of September 2020. They are with us for noting. I think Eddie attends this meeting. I don't know whether Eddie wants to make any comments about it, but clearly they were looking at their statement of accounts. They were looking at their business plan, which they approved, and they looked at the milestones in the agreement, because if you remember, this is a partnership between Cardiff, ourselves, and Bridgend, and it also put in plan the Food Law Safety Enforcement Plan for 2021. So it was quite a productive meeting, I think, and there was an overview and update of the Shared Regulatory Service itself. The minutes are for noting, but Eddie, I don't know if you have any comments to make in particular.
Thank you, Leader. You put that far more succinctly than I was going to, but yes, the reports, as you can imagine, were quite detailed. There's a lot of good stuff in there, particularly with the audit report. We've gotten a qualified opinion from the Welsh, from the Audit Office, which is really good. You're right, the business plan there's an agreement, acknowledges the challenges and the resource limitations that we've got with the 3 partner councils. But clearly we're managing to meet those strategic priorities, and the business plan set out a full range of the services that we actually cover on the regulatory services. The annual report, that was detailed again, gave a £46,000 overspend, but that is paid by the authority that sort of is responsible for that, and Cardiff are willing to pay that, and out of a budget of 8.19 million. That's a small amount, but at least it's been resolved. As you would understand, page 6 on the report says there are more demands being put on the service, particularly with all the legislative changes, and the officers have been able to keep up to date with those. Certainly there's things like Brexit and others that are coming in that we don't know the consequences of those just yet, but you know, again, it's something that the council, the local authority, need to keep an eye on. And so that's you'll notice in the report also there are lots of resolutions, and so when we are accepting this, we are approving and agreeing to those resolutions. And quite rightly so, you mentioned the food law and enforcement service plan and the overview of the service. Just need to say that again, as I do tend to, the officers are doing outstanding work in the environment that they're working with at the moment. So thank you for putting that to note for the committee.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. I think I agree. So are we agreed that we note the minutes, but also congratulate them on the amount of work they're doing and the fact that they've now got a business plan too? Yes, Margaret. Yes, thank you very much. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a report from the minutes of the Joint Consultative Forum, which was held on the 12th of October. There's some interesting issues in terms of this, and some of the things, for example, one of the discussions was obviously about home working, because we have a lot of staff working from home at the moment, as indeed we all are. So that there were some issues in terms of that which were dealt with. There was the consideration of the £500 payment for care workers, which I think technically comes in from as soon as we can get it out. I think we've just started to roll that out. Other than that, there were normal business, and I can't see anything else that needs to be highlighted. Unless anybody's got anything, I will just formally move the minutes as they stand.
Formally second, Leader.
Thank you very much. Next item is a report from myself on the briefing on the capital monitoring period from 1st of April to the 30th of September. The report outlines a position with regards to the capital programme for the period to April to September. It also takes into account the impact of the pandemic on the ability of the council to deliver the full programme. This has been a challenging year due to the pandemic. As you know, early in April, we agreed that the council would not tender for capital schemes due to the concerns regarding one, the availability of contractors, the reliability of their supply, and also the ability to meet the agreed timescales. As you also know, that position has been subsequently reviewed and services are now being re-tendered and tendered for work to be completed. This has, as some of you also know, enabled work to be successfully completed on school buildings over the summer period, and I was glad that we had a visit to one of them fairly recently. The report also details the current position with regards to the capital programme and includes changes to the programme for the following reasons. 1, additions to the programme following receipt of a number of Welsh Government grants. Additions to the programme through the use of Section 106 monies. Some slippage of the programme to 2021-22. And again, that's due to the pandemic, particularly in terms of housing services. There's some things in the report you'll see that we are slipping forward because clearly we're not going to be in a position to carry them out this year. The report is comprehensive and I don't intend to go through it with any detail. They are all there. There's a lot of environment, there's a lot of grant work, the Section 106 monies. And what I'm going to formally do is just to recommend that the Cabinet notes the progress made on the 2020-2021 capital programme. The Cabinet approves the challenges to the 2021 capital programme as detailed in the report. That the Cabinet notes the use of delegated authority as detailed in the report. That the Cabinet notes the use of emergency powers as detailed in the report. And that the Cabinet approves the changes to the 2021 and future years capital programme as again detailed in the report. I don't know if anybody wants to bring out any issues that they care to pick up from their own areas, or just accept the fact that this is an updated report and there are some things going forward and there's been new schemes too. So over to you. Anybody got any comments? Liz?
Thank you, Leader. Only a couple of very brief ones. One is, as is usually said, there are a number of school schemes that are being vied into the next financial year. This is because we undertake work in schools in school holidays, and the Easter holiday actually goes into the next financial year. So they'll be a couple of weeks into the new financial year, but for that reason they have to be vied over. And then also on paragraph 2.4 is the Penarth Library refurbishment. Some money became available, and so the ground floor is being refurbished into an attractive, modern and accessible entry point, with other words used. I think we all know that Penarth Library is a much loved building within the town, but it is showing its age a little bit now, and the availability of this money, 170,000 from Welsh Government, matched with 50,000 from us, means that we're going to have a really super duper ground floor of the library, and I can't wait until that's completed. I think it should be about 3 or 4 months now.
Okay, fair point. There are quite a lot.
I'll second the report.
Indeed it is. If nobody else wants to raise any issues, then I will formally move. Does everybody agree to accept it? Yes? Thank you very much. I'm glad you said yes. The next item is a report on the revenue monitoring for the period 1st of April to the 30th of September. I will say a little bit about this one. The report does outline the position with regards to the revenue budget for up until April to September, and it does take into account the impact of the pandemic on the council's finances and the position with regards to achieving the agreed efficiencies for the current year. The revenue position for 2021 is challenging, with additional pressures both operationally and financially as a result of COVID-19. This has impacted both as a result of incurring additional expenditure, but also from loss of income. From March 2020, Welsh Government has provided financial support to cover additional expenditure incurred via the Local Authority Emergency Hardship Grant. The fund has been made available to acknowledge both the increased costs and the loss of income resulting from the pandemic. For the period March to September, the Council will receive over £6 million from this hardship fund. In terms of how we get the money, claims have been made on a monthly basis in arrears for expenditure, and a table at 2.2 within the report details the grants that have been claimed for the period March to September, and also details the payments that have been received in relation to those claims. With regard to loss of income, £958,000 has been received for the first quarter of the year. A claim for lost income relating to quarter 2 is to be submitted by mid-November, and we again hope to have some feedback and some income from that. In addition, the Council has also received other specific grant funding from Welsh Government to cover additional costs relating to COVID-19, which are again detailed in the report at paragraph 2.5. These total a staggering £43 million. During the year, the original budget is usually reviewed, and any required adjustments and amended budgets is calculated. We've done that again at this time of the year. Adjustments have been made which reflect changes, charges for the use of capital assets, changes to inter-service recharges and transfers and pensions adjustments to comply with the accounting standards. But one thing that has to be remembered is that has actually no net effect on the council budget itself. In terms of where we are this year, it is difficult to project the potential outturn position for the current year end, particularly with the prospect of varying lockdown restrictions between now and the end of the financial year. We've been through 2. We never know, with a likelihood we could go through some yet again. And that's the reason that I made the comment that I did at the beginning, is everybody needs to realise the pandemic is still with us. It is projected at this stage, however, that any unplanned use of reserves will be necessary. And if you look in the reports there for each area, it does show where the unplanned use of reserves are. So unplanned use of reserves will be necessary in the short term, which is currently estimated at £3.6 million. This is, of course, in addition to the £1 million already approved to support the 2020-2021 revenue budget. So currently we will be taking £4.6 million out of reserves, or at least we're estimated that will be the case. The report details the position service by service based on current projections and will change as the year develops, and further clarification on grant funding is received from Welsh Government. So as a result of the pandemic, there has been a reduction also in council tax collection. Clearly people were short of money, and there has been a reduction in council tax collection so far. For the period to the end of September, as compared to the same period last year, there is a reduction of 1.1%, which equates to a loss of about £1 million. There is some light in some respects. This is in part due to some customers deferring payments from April to May instead to February to March next year. So they delayed it by a couple of months, and we hope that money will still come in by the end of the year. The recovery process has been halted in terms of people who are not paying. It had been halted because we thought it was the wrong time to do it, but it has now recommenced. The position continues to be closely monitored, and information is being provided to Welsh Government on a regular basis regarding this issue. So we did suspend any chasing of any outstanding debt, but clearly we are in a position now we need to do that. When the revenue budget for 2021 was agreed, we also set, if you remember, efficiency savings of £247,000. At the currently, it is anticipated that those will be met, but again, this will be closely monitored throughout the year. So basically, that's a snapshot of where we currently are. I don't intend to go into detail, but if anybody does, then it's up to you, because you can see in your own areas, because there are some unplanned use of reserves. And sometimes we get some extra grant in, but we're not sure of. For example, social services is a prime example. So I'm going to recommend that the position with regard to the authority's 2020-21 revenue budget be noted, and that the amended revenue budget for 2021 as set out in Appendix 1 be approved. I don't know if anybody wants to come in and make any comments in their own particular areas, or any comment at all. Liz.
Thank you, Leader. It was only, you mentioned the grant funding in Para 2.5. I just think it's worth mentioning that of that money, 42.5 million is grants to Vale of Glamorgan businesses. Yeah. And that has been processed very quickly by a small but perfectly formed team of regeneration and finance officers. Huge thanks have to go to them to turn around that level of grants in such a short time, and also with all the necessary checks that they have to undertake. So a phenomenal turnout, and hopefully it's helped a large number of our businesses to weather the huge storm that is coronavirus.
Okay, does anybody else got any comments? No. Ben, can I see you? Sorry, my screen's gone strange, so I can't see anybody.
That's okay, thank you, Leader. And I just wanted to highlight one of the things you said, and to add further, really. When we see rates of collection of council tax drop off, clearly that affects the amount of money we have to deliver services to the most vulnerable in our community. And there can be a tendency sometimes when we come to setting budgets for some to argue a higher rate of collection and to keep on pushing as if we're always going to get some of the highest rates across Wales, as we have done in previous years. And whilst no one could predict the pandemic, clearly there have been issues with looming universal credit affecting potential collection rates, and we have been reserved in how we've approached changing that target, and clearly that's going to have some positive effect on our outturn position. And further to that, obviously we've had a significant amount of additional grant funding with regards to social service provision during the pandemic, you know, I have meetings next week with the Deputy Minister regarding some other areas of social services and future payments, so I'm hoping to hear some other stuff there. And really, I don't think any opportunity should go by where we're not thanking all the staff who, underpinning these numbers, is a service providing for our most vulnerable in the community, and we're all doing our bit, but mostly the staff on the ground delivering this care as well. So I just wanted to back up what you were saying about collection rates and how important, when we come to discussing that at future meetings, not to be blasé about how much we could collect, because things can change quickly. These are people's livelihoods that are being affected by this, and they're not in a position to contribute potentially as we would expect, and this is something we have to take account of, and another reason why we have such healthy reserves in order to deal with these issues. So I think it's clearly a concerning set, but with some promise at this particular juncture. So I wanted to just comment on that.
Yeah, I think it's a fair comment. The thing we have to remember is our services are still continuing during this pandemic, and our staff are still working, well, albeit at home or in the front line, or some in our offices too. Obviously, still people there. And without those carrying out that work and their dedication, then we're not going to be the performing authority that we are. So, you know, this is a stark reality of where we are. We're lucky that we've had the amount of money that we have. How long that's going to go on for, how long the pandemic's going to go on for, is another story, and it's something we have to sort of heed and take regular consideration of. Let's put it that way. Okay, anybody else got any comments? Otherwise, I will agree the report as it stands. Yes. Thank you very much. In that case, we'll go to the next item, which is again talking actually about our staff. And that's the Q2 sickness absence report, and this is to update us as our 6-monthly period from the 1st of April again to the 30th of September. I think it's obvious that there's been a significant decrease in the absence levels during the first half. The absence rates are set out in the report at paragraph 4.1 and show there is a decrease from 4.7 days per lost per full-time equivalent to 3.4 days, and the target for Q2 was actually 4.15 days, so we are within target. And the analysis of the figures in each directorate is also within the report, and that's set out at paragraph 4.4, and analysis for the reasons of the absence are set out in paragraphs 410 to 419, and not surprisingly, stress and non-related stress is high on the list, and I wouldn't expect anything else, particularly during the times of a pandemic. The decrease probably is largely due to the pandemic itself. It's important to note that the council have not dealt with a situation like this before, and therefore there is little comparative data that we can base this year's details upon. But clearly the pandemic is having an effect. These reviews will continue. The cases which will take place on a month-by-month basis, particularly reviewing staff with absences over 4 weeks as normal, and those having regular absences to provide early intervention and support. And we will continue to support our teams. The council will be rolling out a comprehensive package of wellbeing support during November too. This is obviously in addition to the support currently available via Care First and Occupational Health. And again, there's references within the report of those people taking up those opportunities. In order to do that, line managers are encouraged to engage with their teams to support them in taking adequate periods of rest and communicate all sorts of support available. Clearly, when you're working at home, sometimes you don't take the amount of breaks that you should, and I know that's certainly the case in my part. We're also working to roll out ergonomic risk assessments to all those employees working from home, and we have a tremendous number of those. And that's to ensure that they have the appropriate equipment available. And a number of initiatives will also take place as listed in paragraphs 5.2 to 5.4 in the report. Figures for the comparison for the Welsh authorities, the rest of the Welsh authorities, will obviously not be available until later in the year, but these will be shared when available. And again, in terms of the annual figure, target for loss is 9.2 days lost per full-time equivalent, and we will be keeping an eye on that, and we'll have a further report in due course. As I say, further reports will be provided to Cabinet at the scrutiny as required. Again, there are details in there, and as I said to you, then details in things like absence of work in each of the areas, and it's interesting to see some of them. And as I said, I'm not surprised that stress, non-work related is some of them, because lots of people are at home. Some people are out of work, their partners are out of work, and there's a great deal of stress involved in either doing work from home and having children around you too, because that's one issue. So the report is before you. It is an unusual report in that there's no comparisons that we can make as in terms of previous years, but clearly work is ongoing to ensure that our staff are protected and have the support they need. So I don't know if anybody else got any comments in relation to this. No. In that case, can I formally move?
And 42nd, Leader.
Is that agreed? Thank you very much. The next item is item 9. This is it? No, it's not. Yes, it is item 9, pay review. Yes, it is. Sorry, got my sync out. Having too many things in front of you. This item is in relation to a pay review, and this is I won't say that the report owner on this report, it needs to be changed to myself. It is down as the member for legal, regulatory, and planning services, but as it's a staffing matter, it would be mine in terms of this one, because it is change of policy, pay policy. So basically, this is a part 1 report in relation to seeking approval to provide an additional payment in line with the Council's pay policy to a senior Vale of Glamorgan staff member in recognition of the strategic leadership across separate business entities and additional duties undertaken to support the region, Cardiff and the Vale. So basically, this is a report. Normally what happens is that the nature of the role of senior staff in question has evolved in recent years to draw comparisons with others existing roles within the Council. So this report and the Part 2 report is intended to consider whether the staff member meets that criteria, which is covered in the background papers, as you see at number 1. And as I said, as mentioned in this part of the report, clearly we do review on occasions people's abilities and their work practices, and whether or not they are currently on the right pay scales. But this is a report which we will consider, but this is a Part 1 report highlighting that it is here, but obviously it will be taken under Part 2. The recommendations here is that this is noted, taken under Part 2, and eventually whatever the report will be after Part 2 will be referred to the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee for consideration and endorsement. So can I formally move, and then we'll take it under Part 2.
Formally second.
Thank you very much. The next item is item 10, the Strategic Collaborative Working Initiative update. This is an updated report, a housekeeping report if you want. It's in relation to collaborative working activity has increased, as we all know, in response not only to the challenges of financial climate, but also now in direct responsibility and response to COVID-19, and in recognition of the value that working in partnership to share skills, expertise, and experience can have in tackling complex issues. So we also have the financial crisis, but we have the pandemic crisis. As you know, Cabinet receives a quarterly update, and this is it. The compendium of strategic work initiatives is at Appendix A. That provides an oversight of the strategic level collaborative working initiatives and activities and captures the details of the various initiatives underway. This report also provides the Cabinet with an update regarding provision of the forthcoming local government elections bill in the context of collaborative working. Cabinet members will be asked to note that the compendium at Appendix A is not exhaustive list, as you normally know, because there are other issues going on too. There's also a part of this report is in relation to the collaboration and local government reform. As you know, the Welsh Government had a Green Paper in 2018, talked about strengthening local government. We responded to that, and since then the Local Government and Elections Wales Bill was published on the 18th of November. The Welsh Government has reprioritised its legislative programme due to the impact of COVID-19, but it's also confirmed that the bill remains a priority for the remainder of the Senedd term, given the need to introduce planned electoral reform in time for the 2022 local elections. Stage 3 is going through, if not gone through. Stage 3 plenary debate and on amendments is likely to be held in mid-November, and I know they've actually dealt with some already, particularly in relation to corporate joint committees. And some of these things will commence in 2021. The bill includes a number of provisions. It talks about reforming the electoral arrangements for local government, a general power of competence of principal councils and community councils, eligible community councils, reform of public participation in local democracy, the leadership of principal councils, including the encouragement to have greater diversity amongst executive members and establishing a statutory position of the chief executive. It also is a development of a framework and powers to facilitate more consistent and coherent regional working mechanisms through the corporate joint committees. As I said, I know that's been through plenary already. A new system for performance management and governance based on self-assessment and peer review, and powers to facilitate voluntary mergers should any principal council want to do that. The local government finance is also included, non-domestic rates and council tax. There has been a working group set up in partnership with West Local Government Association, and they will also include details of those collaborative arrangements in the form of joint committees. As I said, that is something which is gone through plenary and is currently out to consultation. This is by way of an update, no more than that. And to be honest, I'm just going to move the recommendations unless anybody wishes to make any comments thus far. So before I make any recommendations, anybody got any comments? Liz, please.
Thank you, Lisa. I just thought it's worth noting that, you know, as you said, we bring these reports regularly to Cabinet, and they outline the number of collaborations that we have, both locally, regionally, and sometimes across Wales. And I think it's worth mentioning that collaborations such as these have provided a strong basis for our COVID-19 work, and it promises so much for the future. What it means is that we already have established networks for service delivery, you know, locally and regionally, and that when we've had to put things into place for, you know, through the pandemic and lockdown, etc., we already have those networks that we can be fleet of foot in making new arrangements to do things. We don't have to go through formal structures. Things are done, you know, through quick phone calls. Stuff is organised very, very quickly and very speedily. And I think that when we do a full review, once we're completely through this, I think that this will prove to be one of the most important sort of factors that we do have such strong working relationships, not just with other councils, but with other public bodies, whether that be police, health services, the whole range of it. And as I said, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
I think that's a fair point, particularly during the pandemic, because clearly what's happened during the pandemic is that I know I met with all the leaders within Wales on a regular basis. Sometimes it was daily. We went with ministers, and quite frankly, we were very lucky here in Wales because that isn't happening in England. So we have constant contact with our ministers at least once a week, if not more often. Later today, we have a meeting with the Secretary of State for Wales, so that'll be an interesting comment to see what happens with that. But it is also the situation that in terms of the pandemic, we are working with our health colleagues, our police colleagues, and we meet each week in terms of the crisis to see where we currently are, and anything that Welsh Government has done in terms of lockdowns or restrictions, they've always come and talked to us about it. So we've been very lucky in Wales in that we've had that dialogue, which has not necessarily been the case elsewhere. So, and that is a form of working in itself. And in terms of the pandemic itself, is that when we went into lockdown, then you could see the fact that we had things like Vale Heroes come through the door so quickly, that we had the volunteers come through and working with GVS, etc., but all the other organisations and voluntary organisations that have sprung up. And it's something which I think has been remarkable, to be quite honest. But sorry, I've gone on. But I just think, the amount of, I know people think that local government are an insular bunch and they don't work, and they only work for themselves and they only work with themselves, and it's not true, particularly so at the moment. So this is just an update in some, and it is, as I said, just gives the strategic overview, and there are lots and lots and lots of areas where we work which may not be included in this appendix. So the recommendations I need to address, I guess, is that the Cabinet notes the strategic collective work initiatives that are in place, that this report is circulated by email to all Vale Glamorgan Council elected members and members of the Public Service Board. I would also like to include, in terms of that also sent to the town and community councils and councillors. That's not in yet at the moment. I think we need to do that, although I know that they meet in terms of the voluntary sector joint, what's it called? The Community Liaison Committee. And that thirdly, the further updates are provided to Cabinet on a quarterly basis in accordance with the forward work programme. So I think we note what's going on at the moment. We send it out to all other members, and we have an update in the future. Yeah. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. The next item, thankfully, is not mine. It's Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Education in terms of school admission arrangements for 2022-2023, item 11. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is something that we do every year, and so bringing forward this report to Cabinet to seek your approval on consulting on school admission arrangements for pupil admissions for the academic year 2022-2023. So we consult now between September and March, set these catchment arrangements for by the 15th of April 2021, and then they come into force over a year later in the following September. The proposed school admission policy for 2022-2023 is attached to Appendix A. The report, there's a couple of changes that the report is putting forward. It includes a proposal to consult on a temporary change to the secondary school catchment area to take account into projected high numbers in Barry that are coming through for sort of a 3-year period. And we want to make sure that that all Vale pupils can attend school in the Vale. So that's the projected one. I'll go into that with a bit more detail then. In addition, there's a proposed change to Welsh medium catchment primary school serving the Roos area. alongside the policy for admissions into the academic year 2022-2023. The consultation will run from 14th of December to the 14th of December this year to 8th of February next year, and we'll bring a report back to Cabinet in March. It will also obviously, as part of that consultation, go to scrutiny. In terms of key changes, I mentioned about the short-term pressure for secondary school places in Barry. We are proposing to establish a dual catchment area for St Cyrus for the 3 academic years from 2022-2023, so that children in the sort of Pencoitra area, Pencoitra High School area, can choose to attend either or school. I've had a conversation with people from the sort of school recently, and as I've said, this is very much a consultation, and we will continue to be talking to them about how we manage those pressures, and that will form part of the report that we bring back in February. There's a proposed change to Roos area catchment from Ysgol Dewi Sant to Ysgol St Barrack, and the reasons behind that are also laid out in the consultation document. In that is actually closer to go to Ysgol St Barrack, and there will, by that time, will be additional capacity to allow that in the new waterfront school. The proposed changes, we feel, would ensure a more even distribution of school places to meet future demand for pupils within the defined catchment areas school place. So as I said, I'm not going to go into it in any more depth now, because we will have a full discussion at scrutiny when it goes there. So recommendations for this are that Cabinet approves the consultation required in respect of the Council's admission arrangements for all community schools in the Vale of Glamorgan area. 2, that Cabinet approves the consultation to include a proposed temporary dual catchment area for St Cyrus School, and a change to the Welsh medium primary school catchment serving the Roos area from Ysgol Dewi Sant in Llantwit Major to Ysgol St Barrack in Barry. And thirdly, that the report be referred to Scrutiny Committee Learning and Culture as part of the consultation process. I would so move.
Okay, put my mic on. That's fine. Anybody got any comments? I think that's straightforward. Eddie, do you want to comment, please?
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to just say that this just shows that there is justification for many of the changes that come about, and we're intending, hopefully, with the consultation, to make it more open and people can see. There were some difficulties last year, and I think it just needs to be, people need to understand that you are constrained by the legislation and the requirements. You can't just make some changes without consultation, and we want to do for the best for the communities that we look after. So I'm looking forward to the responses from the residents, and it will be more open, and not that it hasn't been in the past, but just that there will be, I think, a raised awareness for people that there is a set way of doing things, and we make some decisions based on lots of the changes in the schools and that's happening in the county at the moment. So hopefully we make sure that we don't get any unintended consequences. So thank you for this report coming to the council. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important we continue to review everything, because clearly, there's been a overheating, if you want, for want of a better word, within Barry since we've created the new schools, which is only a good thing. Let's be honest. But we also have to make sure that all our children have the opportunity to be educated within county too. This is one way of doing that, even if it's only on a temporary basis that we change the boundaries. But it's out to consultation. We'll see what comes in, and we'll go from there. So unless anybody's got any other comments, Liz has formally moved it. I will formally second. Is that agreed? Yep. Good. The next item again is from Liz, and it's in relation to an update to a proposal to establish a new centre for learning and wellbeing, etc. I will not say it because there's too much here. Liz, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Well, Cabinet will remember that I brought this proposal earlier to establish a specialist resource base at Gladstone Primary School as a satellite to Ysgol Derry. To discontinue, that's that word again, isn't it? Discontinue a DICE and establish a new centre for learning and wellbeing under the management of Ysgol Derry from September 2021, so that's next September, and construct a new building for the Centre for Learning and Wellbeing pupils on the Court Road depot site in Barry from January 2023. The Council received 44 responses by the closing date of the 18th of October, and the consultees were actually asked to say whether they did not support or had no opinion on the 3 individual elements of the proposal. So the first element was the new resource base at Gladstone. Out of 44 individual responses, 30 were in support, 2 were opposed and 2 didn't offer any opinion. Discontinuing a DICE and establishing the new Centre for Learning and Wellbeing, out of 44 responses, 32 were in support, 9 were opposed and 2 offered no opinion either way. And part C was the constructing a new building on the Court Road site, and out of 44 individual responses, 40 consultees were in support of the proposal, 2 were opposed and 2 offered no opinion either way. A summary of key themes and issues raised during the consultation exercise is included in the in Appendix B, and following the consultation period, this decision is now required onto whether we progress the proposals further with the publication of the proposal for the regulated alteration in the form of a statutory notice. That's the next one that we go forward. As I said, in Appendix B, there's a full rundown of it. If you look at paragraphs 2.12, that goes through a sort of an overview of the key themes, and that talking about it being increasing the specialist support for additional learning needs, would ensure a consistent approach across special education, with Ysgol Derry managing the provision, the continuation of the successful resource base at Gladstone Primary, and the proposed new building would improve wellbeing with improved external areas. Also, one thing that is worth thinking is that the new building for Centre of Learning and Wellbeing would actually be more central within the Vale for pupils that want to attend. A number of issues came up, and as I said, that's in Appendix B. And they're saying that children that are educated other than at school, the EOTAS children should be considered as part of the process. The capacity for at the Centre for Learning and Wellbeing may not sufficient. Well, we obviously have to look into that. And there was some concern about ensuring that we had sufficient capacity in Ysgol Derry for them to be able to manage these facilities. But obviously we would form a project team with Ysgol Derry and would ensure that as these progress that we were working closely with them, because at the end of the day we want to build on their expertise, not actually detract from it. So we would be doing that. So the recommendations for this and firstly, that Cabinet considers this report, the consultation report and other appendices as included as part of this report, which includes minutes of the Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 15th of October 2020. So we're all happy that we've done that. That Cabinet considers the proposal to establish a Centre for Learning and Wellbeing and a specialist resource base at Gladstone Primary School, which would be managed by Ysgol Derry from September 2021. The Cabinet approves the proposal through the publication of the proposal in the form of a statutory notice, and that Cabinet notes the major investment towards a new school building set out in the proposal. Notes that the proposal. Start again. The Cabinet notes that the major investment towards a new school building set out in the proposal is subject to the necessary funding being approved by Welsh Government. And I so move.
That's good. So okay, so we've considered it. We've noted and approved or accepted the reports before us, and this will go for publication.
I'll formally second, Leader.
We formally second. Thanks very much. Has anybody else got any comments in relation to this? Because clearly this is a major undertaking in terms of ALN, but something which we obviously require, and hopefully the funding will come forward anyway. But we're going at the statutory process first. Yeah.
Actually,
again, as Eddie said, it's a process to go through, and this is part of it. Okay. In that case, we move on to the next item, which is item 13, the proposal to market Barry Island Station building and associated land. Again to you, Liz, please.
Right, now I'm moving on to the other computer, so there's bound to be chaos here now. This is a proposal to market the Barry Island Station building and associated land, and so what I'm seeking today is Cabinet authority to market and dispose of the building for refurbishment or renovation and further development with the current tenant incumbent. So I think that needs to be said straight away, is that the lease is still in place and that the current tenant will remain there. We have a strong track record of bringing back historic buildings within Barry into beneficial use, working in partnership with those with the necessary skills, innovation and drive to do that. And you know, you can look around the areas of Barry at that. And what we want to do now is to look at this key area on Barry Island and see what's possible. It's actually being it's proposed it's being marketed for a range of uses. So that's food and drink, business, financial and professional services. All the, if you look at the report, all the planning classes are there. Assembly and leisure, shops and residential. But that should be noted, that's use class 3 as an enabler. This is not a residential site by any means. It's to enable the rest to go along, and live work as an enabler, and that's happened similarly in some of the other proposals that we've done. We propose to work to put this out to market to see what the interest is, but more seriously to look at what the ideas are. What actually could this be? What could this add to Barry Island in terms of what we all want it to be, a successful and thriving destination? And again, it needs to be said, if we don't get suitable or appropriate bids for this, then we won't accept any. This is actually to get an outcome that is right for the town and for no other purpose. So we'll go back to drawing board and we'll look again, but we will not accept unless it's good. But many people have already said that it's actually quite exciting. Quite a number of local people have contacted me, so I'm hopeful that we can move this forward. So the recommendations, they are rather huge. Lita, would you be all right if I actually said the recommendations as laid out?
Yes.
Yes, because they are rather long. So if I can therefore move recommendations 1 to 6 in relation to this report, which are there to authorise the marketing and disposal of Barry Island Station building together with the demise indicated, to authorise the members of the Barry Regeneration Board to make decisions regarding the marketing and disposal of the site, to authorise the appointment of marketing agents for the marketing agents commission and/or consultants as may be required to achieve project delivery, and to enable the preparation and execution of a legal agreement and completion of the disposal of the site. So that's why we're doing it, and the recommendations are 1 to 6, and I so move.
Okay, that's good. And just to highlight the fact that this has got a lease with the current incumbent until 2030, that there's some use classes which are used as enablers. It's all subject to necessary planning permission and Welsh Government consent, obviously. And there's an element in here of some environmental funding from Barry Regeneration Fund under item 5. So in order to cover the cost of marketing and disposal of the site itself. So with that in mind, Ben, do you want to come in?
I was going to formally second if you weren't to.
Okay, good. I'm happy with that. I think it's quite exciting, really, because if we can continue the work that we've carried out so far with things like the plant house and Goodshed, etc. Some of the older buildings are still here, and when you consider some of the things that have gone on, I think it's quite wonderful. Let's hope we can go forward with this one too. And if there are any others out there, then we'll make sure that they're either done or they're progressed quickly. Okay, that's agreed. The next item is item 14, which is a Cabinet Member Housing and Building Services, which is a COVID-19 homeless and housing related support service phase 2 project, which is on the former civic amenity site Court Road Park in Barry, and this is a part 1 report. Margaret.
Thank you, Leader. I'm to seek Cabinet approval of this scheme, please. This part 1 report brings to the attention of Cabinet a procedure to develop 11-unit development of temporary accommodation at the former civic amenity site at Court Road, Barry, which the Council responds to the COVID-19 homelessness and housing related support services. This is a report. It's a very good report, and it's an essential item that we need. There is another report in part 2 later on in the agenda. Okay. There is only 2 small recommendations at the moment, and they are: the Cabinet notes that the report and considers it in consultation with part 2 report. So I'll be taking part 2 later on in the agenda.
Okay.
That the Cabinet notes this report, and I'm asking for that, for the Cabinet to give permission, please. I mean, we got to look at the section 1414 of the Council's constitution as well, and we need to move forward with this.
Okay, my phone's just going off, and the answer phone's come on, so that's good. Right, okay, so we note this report, go to part 2, but we also note that we're going to use the urgency procedure of 1414 in order for it to go forward. And I apologise about my telephone ringing, that's the only one I didn't take off. Okay, everybody agreed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. The next item is an item on local air quality management annual program. And Eddie, I think, is taking this one, the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning. Over to you, Eddie.
Thank you, Leader. I'll just turn to the report now, so give me a second. Right. Yes. Under Section 82 of the Environment Act 1995, every local authority has an obligation to regularly review and assess air quality in their areas and to determine whether or not air quality objectives are likely to be achieved. And pursuant to this, the Council produced a local quality management report. This report satisfies the relevant legal requirements examining the results of air quality monitoring undertaken across the Vale of Glamorgan during 2019. A draft copy of this report has been issued to the Welsh Government prior to the 30th of September 2020, and the report confirms that air quality within the Vale of Glamorgan continues to meet all the relevant air quality objectives, including within the existing air quality management area, AQMA, on Windsor Road, Penarth. Highlighted by previous findings in the Vale of Glamorgan Council's 2018 annual performance report, due to continual compliance over a 3-year period, the national air quality objectives set for nitrogen dioxide, and in accordance with local quality management, air quality management in Wales policy guidance, June 2017. It was decided and approved by Cabinet to initiate the process to revoke the air quality management monitoring area on Windsor Road, Cogan, Penarth. A public consultation exercise was undertaken to establish the public views on revocation of the AQMA on Windsor Road, and the details of this are provided in this report. The public consultation ran for a period of 11 weeks from 10th September to 25th November 2019, and the consultation received some engagement whereby there were a total of 23 respondents to the online questionnaire. The online questionnaire prompted the air quality concerns. Start that again. The online questionnaire prompted that air quality concerns were particularly prevalent amongst the public. 57% highlighted as very concerned. It is also apparent that the majority of the respondents did not support the decision to revoke the AQMA. 67% said no. Examining the responses received from those who opposed the decision, responses raised concerns over future development and potential subsequent impact to the AQMA, as well as it was thought to be counterintuitive to revoke the AQMA, as it believed that improvements have only been developed by the AQMA order being in place. Concerns have also been raised regarding the continuation of air quality monitoring within the current designated AQMA area. In response to the concerns raised, each key point has been addressed in Appendix 2A, Decision Notice Report. Attached to this year's Cabinet report to review the Annual Air Quality Progress Report 2020, therefore, and in turn, alleviating those concerns and decision to oppose the revocation decision. Considering all the evidence, especially in view of the captured annual monitoring data sets, and given the outcomes derived by the detailed air quality modelling, recommend the decision be finalised to revoke the Windsor Road Penarth AQMA official order. The decision to revoke the AQMA order will be submitted to Welsh Government for final approval. The background is in the report, and you can see from paragraphs 1 to let me see. Sorry, my apologies. 115. There's quite detailed. It's gone into detail about the monitoring, the way it's monitored, the actual ways that the air quality is monitored, and also the periods of the monitoring, what the data sets are. You can see the detail that's in those two reports, quite lengthy, quite detailed, and show that the council meet the requirements. What I do need to point out that whilst we revoke this AQMA area, it doesn't mean that we won't have any monitoring continuing. There will still be the non-automated diffusion tubes, which will continue to monitor just in case. I do also need to point out that the air quality, since the order has been placed, as shown, it's not down to just the order itself that's improved the air quality. It's in fact the transport network improvements that were made around the area, and also we've got to recognise that vehicle technology has also changed as well. So those points that I've just made there, I'll therefore go to the recommendations. Recommending that the Cabinet notes the monitored results gathered in 2019 and approves the finalisation of the 2020 Annual Progress Report attached to Appendix 1 to this report for submission to Welsh Government for approval. The Cabinet considers the Decision Notice Report and detailed assessment in Appendix 2A and B, which supports the revocation of the Air Quality Management Area on Windsor Road, Penarth. And the Cabinet resolves to revoke the Windsor Road Penarth AQMA official order and submit the request to remove the Windsor Road Penarth AQMA official order to Welsh Government for final approval. I'm open to any questions regarding the report, but I can assure Cabinet Council and the residents of Windsor Road that we will continue to monitor the area, but we want to know that the air quality within that area meets air quality requirements. So I so move the report.
And formally second.
Thank you.
You're muted, Leader, but you may well be saying my name.
I was saying your name. I was muted. You're absolutely right.
Ben, so,
I do it at least once in every meeting. Come on.
it's on the 2020 bingo of things to do in a meeting. Struggling to find the mute button. Thank you, Eddie, for that. And I know that we've received letters regarding this report. And I know you asked for questions. I wondered if you could cover off specifically the kind of question of we shouldn't be taking this out whilst we're in this pandemic. This is not, representative of the current situation. I think I'm right in saying that this is actually data from the previous 12 months.
Yes.
And so what we're dealing with is actually something that's going to be even better at the moment, because we all know that traffic levels have dropped, but actually the period of time we're looking at is that 12 months previous. But I know we had a specific communication from a concerned resident within Penarth regarding that. I just wanted to highlight that. I wondered if you wanted to say anything more on that.
Yeah, you're right. And even as recent as...
Before you do, I think Peter wants to come in as well. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Just seen his hand. I can't see his face, but I can see his hand.
Yep, thanks. If I may, it's really just my understanding is that what you're doing is you're removing what I might call the real-time intense monitoring, and we will continue to monitor the air quality on a less intense basis. And really as it's my ward, the one thing I'm seeking on behalf of the people who do live there is the assurance that if those little nitrous oxide tubes or whatever they're called show an upturn, we will reflect and reconsider.
Yeah, I'd like to reassure people that is the case. The local authority has to comply, and the levels of air quality are set. And if there was any indication that we weren't meeting those, then we need to do something about it. And as we have done in the past, we changed the infrastructure so that there wasn't so much traffic around that area. But even so, the results in the data sets show, and also the modelling that's also been done, there isn't any likelihood of those levels being exceeded. But you're quite right, the diffusion tubes will still be in place, so we will monitor. The reason why we want to be able to use the automated monitoring in a way that's in other areas, so that we can just check rather than spend effort on an own area, which, let's say, you're right, the data set refers to 3 years prior to, and we've had the pandemic, which obviously reduced, continued during that period to be below the levels. So it's time to accept, and it's a good news story, isn't it? We've got good air quality. You only monitor when you haven't got good air quality. So
well, I think that's the point. I think what you have to remember, MA in place because of the air quality. So we needed to address that, find out what it was. We took action, change traffic flows. Therefore, once you've addressed the issue, you can take it out, but you don't stop monitoring in a normal way rather than in an intensive way. Yes. So I think it's the same as everything. You put something in place. When it's fixed, you take it out. Yeah. So I can't see anything wrong with this, and I agree that we've done the right thing, and now is the time to move on and, if necessary, have the ability to do something somewhere else. But as you say, the air quality in the Vale of Glamorgan is within all acceptable standards.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Pushing on an open door here. So I think it's been moved and seconded. We all agree, yes?
Yeah.
Good, thank you, Eddie. The next item is from Report Cabinet Member Services and Transport. Objection report from Morrell Street, Barry. Peter. Again, this is a part 1 report.
Yes, Leader, colleagues, bearing in mind that that we're talking about an individual, I'm going to be very cautious what I say at the moment. Suffice to say that there have been objections, but we have a statutory obligation to provide parking bays for people who qualify, and I will probably we'll give more detail under part 2. Thanks.
Okay, that's fair enough. So we note the current report as it stands, and we will discuss it further under part 2. And that's my phone going off again. The next item is from Ben, and I'll ask you to take it out while I go mute.
Thank you, Leader. Happy to introduce this. This report relates to the day services and the Vale of Glamorgan Adult Services Department Operating Commission daytime opportunities to provide meaningful activities and social opportunities for and with adults with complex care and support needs. All of our day services, as you would imagine, and was detailed in our cabinet meeting when we last physically met in March. All day services were closed in response to the coronavirus pandemic. We have put in place telephone and outreach services to try and implement and maintain contact with day service attendees. An engagement exercise has been undertaken with all day service attendees to check on their well-being and to ascertain people's feelings about living with coronavirus restrictions and also their thoughts about returning to the day centres. Adult Services has developed a day service recovery plan, which is what this report talks to safely enable the reopening of day services and taking into account the social restrictions and Welsh Government guidance. And we're continuing to understand that. But if I take you through the recommendations, I think this will highlight the importance of the reports. So recommendation 1, the Cabinet considers the content of this report, results of the engagement of the service users, and you'll see some interesting comments within that engagement in the appendices attached. The Cabinet considers the proposals contained in the report as a basis for reopening of day services and subsequent engagement with trade unions and staff on the way in which services are provided. The Cabinet approves the gradual reopening of day services from the 18th of November 2020. The delegated authority is given to the Director of Social Services in consultation with myself, Cabinet Member for Social Care and Health, to put arrangements in place to reopen day services on the basis outlined in this report. At this time, I'd highlight the slight typo in this recommendation. Bases should be SIS, not SES at the end, so we'll amend that. And if we are required to further implement further closures, as maybe to relate to any existing restrictions or future restrictions regarding COVID-19, recommendation 4 gives that delegated authority to do that. Recommendation 5 is reports referred to the Healthy Living Social Care Scrutiny Committee for consideration, but noting that recommendation 6, the urgency procedure as set out in section 1414 of the Council Constitution, is being used in respect to the recommendations 1 to 4 above, so that we can enable the day services to gradually reopen from the 18th of November and not unduly delay any further, bringing that about through waiting for scrutiny first. Of course, as we begin to reopen, we'll be able to take on board comments from scrutiny, and you'll note from the way that the appendices lay out how we've engaged with service users, we want to do this in partnership with those. And what will be very different for one set of day service users, because we have a wide array of services and different clients who use those services. Clearly, we're going to be reflective of that and mindful of their needs. So as we do this, we'll be making changes. But I so move the recommendations as listed, and I'm excited to see opportunities being able to be restarted for these people who use the service. It's the overriding feedback has been they've absolutely missed it. It's part of what gives them a purpose. It's something which they really get some value out of, and we've noted with respect to care homes and visits and individuals and shielding, the effects that COVID has had on people's mental health and how people have interacted. Clearly gathering together groups of people who in the first part of this COVID response were shielding into one place was always going to be a highly risky activity. We understand a lot more about how COVID operates, and we are putting in place the measures where we can do that safely and securely. And so I'm pleased to see us developing this way. And certainly the picture is similar across Wales. A number of councils haven't yet opened their day services, but they're all looking to do so as soon as they can. So I trust you can support this this report, and I look forward to reporting back on successfully managing to reopen all of our day service opportunities.
Indeed, I echo the comments you made, and the fact that by opening these, we are taking everything seriously, and the numbers have reduced, obviously, because you have to reduce the numbers in order to do it safely. But it does give the opportunity for those who are most vulnerable, most at risk, most frail in some cases, to at least have some of the opportunities of meeting others, etc. So we have to move forward, albeit that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I have no issues. Anybody else any comments? Otherwise, I'll formally second. Okay, thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm sorry about the telephone ringing, but there you go. Okay, any items under part 1? I don't have any more under part 2, under part 1, but I do have items under part 2. And before we leave, what I will just make the comments that we have items for discussion under part 2 of the agenda, which follow on from the previous discussions on part 1 of the agenda earlier. As these matters are considered to be sensitive and/or confidential, we will need to move into private session where confidential matters can be discussed under part 2. Therefore, at this point, the Cabinet Officer will stop recording the meeting and ensure that only Cabinet members and relevant parties remain to hear the detail of the items to be discussed. Following the meeting, the outcome of the part 2 discussions will obviously be formally part of and be formally captured as part of the minutes of the meeting, advising readers of the final decision of the Cabinet for the part 2 items. So at this stage, we will go into part 2, which is under the line, and we will stop recording, and then we will make sure only those who should be present are present, and we will discuss part 2 items. So at this stage, thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your attendance in part 2. And if you are listening online eventually, goodbye.